in just outside Denver, Colorado for representative size. I think they should put in an event center in here, and I think they need way more parking so to fill this event center. So I'm just going to say as they develop that road, they really should be putting in an appreciable parking lot over here to serve this whole area. And then that would be from my zoning. I already have my car parking. So now that's going to apply the color and any other fields that I want. And maybe at this point, I'm also just going to grab some generic blocks. In this case, I think that what they're missing out on, they've got soccer covered. My event center will cover all of your indoor roller skating sports, but what we don't have is baseball. And I think there's plenty of room over here for one of those you know, one of these sorts of things. But you can see this maybe is just your sort of internal process. Maybe once you do get your ideas fleshed out here, maybe you will go to Illustrator and have a very nice looking presentation. But again, we're so familiar with AutoCAD, and as I organize and draw these blocks, I'm able to move very quickly. And so even if it's only organizing my thoughts for what I want to do. And I said I wanted to have some kind of mixed use sort of area in here. So that was my neighborhood commercial. I thought that would look good right there. And residential, and I'm just drawing some polylines here, of course, and then probably a little area here. And of course, you see I'm just drawing basic polylines. I'm, of course, trying not to do this too perfectly for the purposes of just a webinar, so I can get through and show you how it all comes together. These areas that I'm placing, as I said, they have additional fields. They have all this data. I can apply a density per acre. I can apply a floor area ratio percentage if it's a commercial. I can also designate various user fields if I wish in terms of whatever sort of use I'm seeing. So the basic way to sum up zoning, which is this tool, is zoning is assuming it's going to be a color-coded area. It's assuming that you're looking at it on basically an acre or square footage basis. And so it's just streamlining that process. I'm going to show you a tool a little bit later that gives me a little more flexibility. But if that is what I'm doing, is basically some land planning, zoning type work, that's what the tool was designed for, was just simply to bang that out quicker. And so I can drop that schedule here into the drawing. And you see how that all comes together as it tells me how many acres, the density, and how many units. And so again, here's where doing this in AutoCAD is the ultimate, because I can be sketching this out in Illustrator and just simply having to resort to the math to kind of see, well, the county said they really wanted at least 150 housing units in there. So I can just be playing with polylines until I'm pegging what I want. But already, you see, I'm already noticing potential future expansion, right? Wouldn't it be nice to count the parking spots? Yes, it would. So keep your eyes peeled for that as a future tool. More tools for mixed use, for instance, right? I want to know my square footage of commercial and my units of residential if I'm designating mixed use. Let's make more mixed use. Let's make a little walkable community in what was an environmental wasteland. What a great project that would be. And I think I'm pretty much done with this example, Brian, unless we have some questions on that.
We have a question, not a ton, but one of our metric users was wondering if the zoning would also calculate meters if you're using a metric preference set.
Absolutely, yeah. If your scale is, I'll go ahead and just break this. I'll just set it to any old metric scale, and you'll see when I now edit these, they're per hectare, and then that would, of course, be square meters. For any other calculations. So yeah, fluidly imperial metric. This is one of the few times you'll see me doing a mostly imperial presentation. I don't know why. Usually I'm always on my metric drawings. I think it's because as I was grabbing these from Google Earth, I couldn't figure out how to make that meters instead. So
Yeah, that's all we got right now. So remember, submit your questions down there at the question box, and I'll get to them.
And so now I'm going to show something which may have a little more applicability to most of our users here. And if I can find it here, here we go. Residence design. But also, what I'm going to show now is again, I'm just focused on I want to be fast. I need to be fast, and so the sort of direction that's happened in these tools of there's zoning tools versus these concept graphics versus putting in site amenities. But you know what, reference notes has all of that capability all in one convenient place. And so what I'm going to do for this is I'm exclusively going to be using just simply reference notes, even though I could be using some of these other tools. The site development tool, I will take a very quick diversion and just show that. Here is an example of the site development tool using exclusively it. So, like I said, the zoning tool looks at things on on an acre or hectare basis. The site development tool is saying, what if we just are sketching here and assigning my dollars per square foot. And actually, our metric user will be happy. This one is in metric. And so that site development tool, like I said, is if I'm designated areas and I'm just simply ballparking my cost per square foot or square meter. And so again, this one, the tool is streamlined for just that, but obviously, well, gee, what about the things that are a cost per uh, uh, a length, or maybe they are a cost per individual? I would then have to tack on to the bottom of this my reference note schedule. Which is just makes it a little bit of going back and forth between two things. So this still has a great amount of capability. Is give me my ballpark. Here's all of my square footages, square meters, my cost per, my nice descriptions, which of course if I pulled those from my template, I'm moving very, very quickly. I have a ballpark number, but of course I'm going to go ahead and need to use reference notes to add some additional things. Well, what I'm going to show now is basically the same thing, but let's just stay inside of reference notes. I found this image again on good old Google Earth, and it just kind of made me giggle. I'm just kind of pretending this guy called you. And he said, I bought this $600,000 house in Los Gatos, California, and I got to look on this neighbor and I got to watch them playing bocce ball and laughing at their pool every day, and it's driving me crazy. You got to hook me up with a better backyard. So, hey, no problem. So that's kind of how I kind of envision it and I've actually seen this at a client's office. I was stopping by to visit, and a very similar thing happened. Is the guy called him and said, just give me a ballpark. I just want to kind of get a vague sense of what I'm after. And what if we can do this and have a very professional looking display? So I grabbed the Google image of his lot, and let's mark it up real quick. For instance, he said he just bought a new car and he needs to put in a carport and a car charging station. So I know over here in my vehicles, I've got a bunch of car blocks, and I even happen to have one that's his nice shiny new Tesla. So we'll just kind of drop that guy in there. So I can kind of show that and could kind of see, well, how are we going to be uh, how are we going to be looking at the carport there? But specifically, let me go ahead and make sure I'm in my right project, which I am, is I'm going to say, you know what, I'm just going to make a reference note, super quick, that you're going to need to put in electric vehicle charging station, and that's going to, punch you at $3,500. And then I'll just go ahead and drop that in. Keep that scale, will be fine. Actually, it's a little tiny of a scale, but let me go ahead and make that a little bigger. All right, so I can go ahead and just simply place that and say, yep, he's going to be dropping that in. Whoops. And see, now I've got this one is on top, which is no fun. There we go. Once again, I'll just knock that down. Now, sorry, for the fourth time, I can drop that in a little bit bigger, a little easier to see. And in the same way, now just using reference notes, I'm going to be dropping in things and assigning a very quick cost to them so that I can just breeze right through this. Maybe I'm even literally on the phone with this guy while he's saying it. Um, but I know, for instance, because I spent the time and in my conceptual design elements, I defined a bunch of things. And so there are a lot of these elements that I end up using over and over again, and I'm able to, again, assign a photo, assign a cost, assign a description, so that I've got, every swimming pool of a vague, we're talking just pencil sketch, So he wants a bigger swimming pool than his neighbor. Okay, I think I got that. He wanted to do something pretty cool to show off his new Tesla, so he wants to redo his driveway. I have a good decorative concrete driveway. I'll bring that in. He is going to have to put in some decorative concrete around the pool, and he wants, some other things. So I'm going to grab some of these other ones. I'll just grab. I know I have a couple of these that I have filled out, and I'm just going to grab them and show you kind of what they look like as an example. So in this case, my decorative driveway. Again, let me just draw a very quick polyline. So he wants to redo his driveway. So again, the beauty of this is I'm going to be doing the area calcs. That's why this is just so handy to pull this off. And so I will place him, and you can just barely see it did apply that little gradient, but it's nice that you can barely see that. I have this trellis block. I defined that as a block. So it has a cost. It has a cost assigned as an object. So you see, look at how quick I'm moving. I already went through the effort to click on object to either make or assign that block. But I didn't assign the cost, so let's go ahead and give him a cost. And I can call that out if I wish. Now that it's in here, so I can call him out. I can also call out my driveway here to kind of see what's going on very quickly. And again, let me just drop these elements in really quickly so we can kind of see what's going on. I've got my pool area, and then maybe like while I'm doing this, I have some things that weren't defined. For instance, is while I'm on the phone with him, he says, they're playing bocce ball. I hate bocce ball. I'm an old horseshoe guy. Oh, well, I know I've got some of those blocks as a generic block. Yeah, here's my little representative horseshoe pit. So again, having these blocks are so if you do need them, save them. Use our save block button to save them in the right place. So now I'm just moving so quickly, I'm just going to say horseshoe area, and that's going to run you 2,500. Just like that, as quickly as possible, so that I'm still just kind of getting these elements in there, and I can still call out the swimming pool. And I think that was pretty much it. And I'll just draw another couple of little polylines, right? I had my I'm not going to spend the time to make this a beautiful arc, even though it's going to drive Brian crazy. But let's say we wanted I know I have that really nice photo of kind of what screening plant area looks like. But let me do my, I don't think I brought that in. So again, I'm just going to import in from there we go, my little master. I had my screening trees. Where again, the key thing is I had the color assigned, and I had an appropriate dollar per square foot assigned. This is so preliminary. I'm not bothering with how many plants might be in there. I'm going very, very pencil sketch. So my tropical flower garden, drop him in, and let me just do my last couple little things here. I had him. And I want to, and while I'm just drawing a couple of these polylines, I don't suppose there's another question. Is there, Brian?
No questions yet. The only one that came in was how did you create, what was your process for creating the database of concept notes? But I think you answered that when you showed off how you're using a template created from project files.
Exactly, and I'm actually I'll go in and I'm going to show that a little more. Absolutely. So I wanted my tropical shade plants over here, and actually also over. Actually, no, I want my pool area. I'm going to hit M for multiple so that I can grab my. Whoa, just to be safe here. There we go. And let me just make sure. I think I imported. Oh, I think that's good enough. Anyway, yeah. So I'm just going to skip whatever I maybe was thinking for this. And again, I can call them out, but the beauty of these is, again, is I did assign photos to, I believe, all of these, in addition to the cost. So again, I'm going to jump right up to my photo call out and pick him. And, so there's a photo. I see I put that's the wrong photo, so that's why. I think that's why I got mixed up. But here's my little shade area, so that looks nice. Um, and see, I can drop in my photo and I'll do the little leader. Yeah, I was thinking of having this in the back, but hey, let's just keep on moving. So I did have this photo for my little tropical garden area. Um, and I'm just going to drop this off screen just for the purposes of this. Um, and so again, since I have the photos assigned, I'm able to move pretty quick. Um,
Got a question, Jer. In an instance like what you just experienced there with having it swapped, would you be able to use the land effects match properties button to associate different areas with hatches?
Absolutely, yeah, that's a very good question. You absolutely could. Um, and so, yeah, so with Lemmy, as an example, yeah, um, I'll just do a quick little area here, and I accidentally made this the driveway. Oops, that's not the driveway. So I absolutely can jump right up here. And so a lot of these tools will work on these reference node objects. So I can use the match property area to say, ooh, I want to just continue that back here. I think it didn't pick them. Well, you know what? That's supposed to work. Well, we're gonna, I don't know why, I did click on it. So, all right, well, I will look into that. That was supposed to work. No, because obviously it does work on the plants. There might just be some little thing. So we'll just move on, but that, if maybe I clicked on it wrong or something. But long story short, so the idea, like I said, is I had a very quick phone call with a client. I've spent the time to define some of these elements and organize my photos in such a way where it's easy for me to do this. I can very quickly punch this up, and then I'm going to go to my little reference note schedule and get out of floating model space and run my little schedule. And I want to, of course, include cost, but I don't necessarily want the detail. And I better do my symbol for my areas. And let's go ahead and just drop that in over here. So the idea being, I'll get my page set up. So yeah, this takes a little bit longer than just simply typing some of this into an email, but doesn't this look more professional? And now I've given my client a number. He knows to pull that out of his IRA because we're gonna do something nice with his backyard, and his neighbors will have nothing on him then. Um, but where this leads to is, well, where do we get these dollars per square foot? Where do we set all this up to be so fast? Right? And particularly like that horseshoe area, I might think, gosh, I wish I had that. So what I'm going to do is just simply go to a blank drawing here. And if I was starting from scratch, I'd make a new project, but I'm saying conceptual design elements is the project where I want those. I'm specifically making all of my little conceptual design elements in that one project. So whether I was starting from scratch or in this one, I'm just opening it up. And that's in the reference note manager. Here's where I had all those. And I wanted a site improvement object that was in my athletic, and that was my horseshoe. And see, now I've got my horseshoe play area. And it's got the cool, I love the ones with the railroad tie, sand pit, seating area, scorekeeping, let's make it nice, right? Whoops, let's spell it nice too. Um, and yeah, it's gonna run $2,500 now, of course. And so here's the beauty of it is, okay, yes, maybe when you first do this you're kind of doing a stab at a dollar figure, right? Well, at some point, we're this is all about having a good communication level with the client. At some point we are going to know how much this cost. So now what you could conceivably do is come back in here when it's all said and done and go in here and say, well, as it turns out, that ended up being 2850. And hey, that's now pretty darn accurate. And now, why don't we go ahead and assign a photo of the finished completed project? So the next time this ever comes up, I'm moving pretty fast. So that's kind of where the template all comes together. Now, as can happen, if you really do get this padded out and my zoning master padded out, that's really, really important data. So do please back it up. That's all. If you remember one thing, remember that. Back it up. Kick it out to an LFX file, store that in a bunch of different places. And so that way you have all these different backups. Because also, likewise, you might want to do a variation, and that's the other beauty of this, is you're so fast at this point. Maybe we're going to give this client a couple different options. And so in that case, a very quick way to do that is to just simply copy this DWG, for instance, and leave that particular project. What I actually might do is back up the project, kick it out to an LFX file, and I'll just leave it right there, and then restore it back in and say this is um, yeah, version 2. So now I've got a complete copy of all that stuff, and now I can change it. So now I'm saying, okay, now not the 30 by 60 swimming pool, maybe you're just going a 10 by 30, and you're going to be able to save a bucket of money by doing that. So now I'm able to have a separate DWG, a separate land effects project, but still very closely related to the other one, but they aren't going to affect each other. So I've got, there's the version 1, there's the version 2, there's separate land effects projects, separate DWGs, but then I'm giving the client a couple different options, all very quickly, all very professionally. Any questions at that point?
We had a couple questions on scaling the image, but I answered those through the chat. So if you feel like you want to go over that, that might be helpful. As well as, are there any tools for converting some of these hardscape, like generic things at the preliminary design stage into construction documentation types of things?
Oh, yeah, both really good questions. Let me kind of do both real quick. I just have simply a blank drawing. I know, for instance, I want to be in decimal feet, so I'm just going to make sure I'm decimal feet. I don't need to do anything more than that, other than, well, I should make a layer. So I'm going to go ahead and click my little new layer button and Z photo. And I tend to make them non-plot. That's our non-plot color around here. That's how old school I am. Remember I'm so used to not having a non-plot actual setting that we do it only through the color. Hey, don't worry about that. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and insert my raster image. And there's my early stages images. I'm gonna go ahead and grab the resonance again, right as I grabbed it. I'll go ahead and do no path and insertion point, but scale I don't care about because that's what we're going to fix. So it's basically like this. So it's really, really quite easy. Is especially you need something and of showing what size it's supposed to be. So I'm just simply going to, on a distinctive layer, I'm just simply going to draw a line to kind of so I can really snap to it. I just want to really peg that. So so it looks like it's right from there, and I ortho that out, and that's as accurate as we're going to get, right? But that is supposed to be 50 feet long. So from the scale command, I just simply select this guy, and it says select base point. So I just snap to that first point. I want to do by reference, so I say R. Reference length is this guy. So what's the new length? We know the new length, 50. Done and done. I don't need this anymore. And now I can zoom extents. And now if I was to, measure this, from about here to about here is about 50 feet. So yeah, I mean, I'm as close as I can really get off of a photo. And so sometimes you have to work off of a parking stall or a known distance or something. 7 feet across the car or something like that. But that's why I always be sure to crop them so I have that little key. That sure is handy. Thank you, Google, for doing that. But again, I'm going to go ahead and just drop in one of those areas to show that second question. Go back to my little webinar project and grab just any one of those. And if I place that, let's say that was 1 to 20. So I placed that as a solid hatch. So yeah, now let's go ahead and proceed this, because of course I might want to call it out. Try to call this darn thing out. Sometimes it takes a little bit of effort to select the guy. There he is, right? Bingo. Okay, so calling out to me is instrumental with converting to a construction document, but I also might want to be reverting it to just a hatch. And so I should be able to just simply pick a hatch and swap the guy out. Now, why it went so dense is a really good question. I think that was going from solid to hatch. Let me remind myself. There we go. Yeah, that's a fun little AutoCAD bug. So if you come across that, you'll notice when I went from a solid fill to a hatch, the hatch scale was really wonky. But then if I just simply changed it again, it worked then that time. So now I'm moving along to a construction document. So yeah, it's absolutely intended to be able to transition along. I wouldn't necessarily recommend making a copy of the project at that point. I would just simply back it up. So when it was at a conceptual level, make a backup of that project data, and then go ahead and change it in place as we transition it to a construction document.
We had a couple questions come in about the backup process after you showed that, and people were wondering if backing up a LandFX file, does that also back up their DWGs and X references, or does it just back up the LandFX information?
Yeah, well, I mean, it can sort of do both. What I can do is when I click backup, I do have the e-transmit. So e-transmit will grab this DWG file and everything that an e-transmit would see. So I can e-transmit it, and what it'll do is it'll add the LandFX data in with the e-transmit. So that's pretty handy. But what we basically are concerned about is the LandFX data, because we assume that you are backing up your drawing files. I mean, there's probably a system in place for those. But the LandFX data, by being in a very powerful multi-user database that's on an external server, it's a little more difficult to get to. So one is every once in a while, back up all projects. Well, that was easy enough. I mean, took 2 clicks there. And it's going to click away, and then it's going to tell me where it backed up all projects to. And it says right here, all active projects and preferences have been backed up to right in my LandFX folder, data, backup, and then the date. And you'll notice there is that backup all projects button in the update dialog box. So it's very easy for you to occasionally do that. So that way, if that folder is in your backup strategy, you're grabbing all that line effects data. But mainly when I want to say backup project to LFX file, usually I just want to do that. We then have the backup details in case you have a lot of details placed. That's nice to get a quick snapshot copy of all those details. But of course, since details are inserted as blocks, personally, I don't think that's as necessary because it's easy enough to just copy your detail sheet file. But backing up the project to an LFX file, I can just simply go bang and drop it in to that folder and can just simply bam. So now that LFX file is in the folder with the DWG files. So that was easy. So I've got a snapshot of the data right there with the DWG files. So that would be the key thing with backing up there. Any other question before I get on to future stuff, Brian?
No, no questions. We'll give people a couple more minutes to send in some extra questions before you go and talk about some cool stuff in development.
So where I would want to stress the next most important thing is um, that whole process should have been done here. And so that's where we are most concerned is, that was really fun, but hey, you want to really impress that client. And it really does. It needs to be at this level and not even, right, not even finished. You can just draw some gray boxes in SketchUp very quickly. But it's going to give the client more ability to visualize what you're doing, and it's just a natural progression of how these sorts of things should be done. So the first thing that some of you may have noticed that we've already moved over here is concept lines. So the concept lines, the first thing I did is I just completely ignored the whole thing of schedule and all that, and I actually kind of reverted the functionality to kind of a former, simpler way to do it, where I just simply pick a line type. I then pick a color. So if you're trying to match the color or the size of a previous one, it's still up to you. But ideally, you could be, go, oh yeah, it was, 3 over and 4 down. It was that guy. And then how big do I want to scale him? He's going to be a little clunky with shadows on, but let me see if he'll draw okay. Um, but the same basic tool, right? And then you'll see at the bottom of the screen it says press enter for arrow options. Right click behaves differently in SketchUp than it does in AutoCAD. I'm sorry I couldn't keep that as a right click action, so please don't get mad at me. So I have to hit enter. I hit enter and I've got my arrow options there. And so that just looks sharp, if I may. That's just really cool. So obviously the next is adding on to that is if we can define the node objects, and then of course the next is, well, can we start just assigning a cost per square foot to things? Can we assign a cost and run a quick schedule? I can already run a schedule, so we've got a lot of these tools already here in SketchUp. Very simply, I just need the ability to assign a cost to things. And for the most part, you're going to be using straight SketchUp commands. I think you just go to the 3D warehouse is kind of where I was thinking is let's go to the 3D warehouse and let's look for a pool sort of a thing. Um, and it might take a little looking. All right, fine. Here's one. Let's see. It's, of course, at the wrong scale. That's the problem with the 3D warehouse, right? I can't. Well, maybe that is the right scale. It's just giant. Okay, but yeah, well, but to be able to basically right-click on that and assign a cost. Now, that's something SketchUp 2014 you kind of can already do. So maybe we don't need to necessarily worry about that. In AutoCAD, we've had to basically reverse engineer so much capability that we want. Whereas in SketchUp, a lot of these tools are already there. A lot of the fun capability, like this is a group. And if I double click on it, now I'm editing the group. And if I double click, now I'm editing that component. and I can, for instance, alter that one, and they all alter. So maybe I just wanted to turn that into a wall or something. So that concept lines tool has a lot of capability here in SketchUp. And so I do think we need to add our node tool, and we're going to come up with some ability to assign costs. And then kind of we're continuing to expand, of course, our site amenity system. So again, if I was to, for instance, go in here and click on new, I will say, for instance, site furnishings and sitescapes, and I'm just going to kind of pick any old bench here. And so I can go and I can place this guy. So if it's manufacturer related, I think we can even speed you up a bit more. So that will be a really neat tool, particularly because we can at least assign the list cost to these. So we've got a lot of that capability, and of course, since I place that through our site amenity system, I can right-click on it and I can see it. It's a land effects object. It's not a plant though, but I know it's a land effects object. So I can access it. And this, of course, will be a dialog box where I can assign a cost. So we're really getting there with SketchUp. So that's kind of where I see a lot of what I just showed you evolving to. Even though I said, wow, isn't it great to do this in AutoCAD? Well, isn't it even better to do it in SketchUp? That's something to think about. Any other questions, Brian?
No, I don't think so. I think everybody's just kind of blown away by the awesomeness of.
Oh, that's excellent. That's wonderful to hear. Um, well, yeah. Hey, and that's a few minutes early here. I think that's great to tell everyone to enjoy their weekend and keep these ideas coming. Literally everything I showed you was suggested by a user. And so, that's how we've continued to do this. So, send me your ideas. Tell me kind of what you're wrestling with. What are some tools that you would like at an early stage of design? How would you like to link them all up? Should we take that site development idea of a basic dollar per square foot to a planted area, and should we link that to a concept plant group with individual plants and individual symbols, and then to individual plants for a construction drawing, and have the whole thing be one fluid process? Let us know, and we're going to make it. That's how it works. So hey everybody, have a great weekend.